Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first art forum of 2026. And I cannot be more excited to be here today with three incredible artists that the Montgomery Art Association is once again sponsoring our program. They are just a fabulous organization putting on exhibitions for artists in the area. And I'm going to invite Lily Kack, who's a representative of Montgomery Art Association, to that before we actually get started with our artists and our art forum about abstract art, she's going to talk a little bit about Montgomery Art Association. So I'll pass the torch to Lily really quick.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, uh, as he mentioned, my name is Lily Kaak, and I'm the Vice President of Programs at the Montgomery Art Association. And I'm very pleased. I took a quick look at, the people who are here on the call today, and I was very pleased to see a lot of people from MAA. I do recognize many of them. And in fact, Sylvia, who's our president, is also here. So I'll just say a few words. I know we are all here to hear the artists and not me, but I will give a little introductory few words about MAA. If I miss anything, Sylvia, please chime in. So MAA is, I understand, I've been the vice president just for about a year, but a member of MAA for many years, maybe like 10 years or so. I learned that MAA is probably the oldest art association in the county for sure, and maybe even in Maryland, one of the oldest. It started in 1954. So we have about 600 members. We are a very, very active and thriving art association. Not all 600 are very active, but we have a lot of activities that we seek to engage our members and to provide them with opportunities, not only to show their art, but also to learn about art. And so this partnership we have with ACO is one of our ways of, opening up opportunities for our members to hear from experts like you about different aspects of art. So that's why I'm very happy to see so many online today. We have, an art exhibition going on almost every month. I think every month we do have something going on every month. We don't have it in one gallery. We keep rotating in different galleries around the county, around Maryland. And so our VP for exhibits is Kathy Tynan, and she's not exactly sitting on her hands, I can tell. In addition to our art exhibition, actually, I should mention our signature exhibition, which we call Paint the Town, which is held every Labor Day, and it's very, very well attended. But in addition to the art exhibitions, we also have many opportunities for people to learn about art. And we do that through field trips to various galleries and places like that here within Maryland, Baltimore, even as far away as New York. And we have, what else do we have? We have figure model drawing twice a month at Glenn Kessler's gallery. We have workshops once a quarter. We have workshops. We have art critiques. We have an open studio. We've just started an open studio because our members had expressed the need to come together and just do art together, so informally. So we've introduced open studio as well. So that keeps us quite busy and our members quite engaged. And I'm really very proud of being a member, a leader, part of the leadership to steer this forward. Let me just take a minute now, just moving off from MAA. I'm very, very excited about a new exhibition that I'm organizing, and it's going to happen. It's going to open exactly a month from today, 7th of March, for 2 months. And this exhibition is called Global Rhythms, Remembering USAID Through the Arts. I used to work for USAID for over 20 years, and like thousands and thousands of my colleagues, we were all laid off last year. It's exactly a year since we were laid off, and people are still grieving from, a whole way of life and the service we provided and all that. So there's a lot of emotion there, and I felt through art we could actually celebrate the legacy of USAID. So I put a call out, and about 40 artists, these are all people who had worked for USAID before. I was just amazed. I was so touched by it. They responded to my call. So this exhibition will have over 100 pieces created by over 40 artists for 2 months in Glenn Kessler's art gallery. So I will be sharing my flyer and all that with you just today. We're releasing everything, and we just hope to have you all there at this art exhibit. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Lily. That was incredible, and I'm so excited to see the show. This is the Compass Atelier Studio
Yes,
in
yes,
Kensington. Okay, cool.
yeah, yeah.
Wonderful. I'm so happy to see that. I'm going to share my screen now so we can get started. Here we go. We're gonna get started on the abstract art forum. I really am excited to talk about our artists today, and actually, I'd rather have them talk about their work and their kind of approach to making art by themselves, because I like this platform, the Art Clinic Online, as a way for artists to kind of uh, solidify what their art is about, rather than having other people talk about their work for them. I think history tends to kind of want to take the reins, like whoever is the art critic at the time will take the reins and say what this artist's work about. And I like that we can actually, while we're alive, talk about our work and kind of do that for us. So rather than jump straight into the questions that we have for our artists, I want to kind of introduce each artist individually before we kind of come together, answer questions as a collective. So our first artist, Shanthi Chandrasekar. Am I saying your name right, Shanti?
Shanthi Chandrasekar.
Oh, wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your artwork?
Okay, I am a multimedia and multidisciplinary artist with a background in physics and psychology. I have always loved art, and it's been part and parcel of my whole entire growing up. I grew up in India, and it was on the shores of Bay of Bengal in a small scientific community called Kalpakam, and it is surrounded by traditional arts and ancient temples. And I was also growing up with, I grew up with a very multicultural society, and that has helped inform. And as an adult, I moved to different countries with my husband and children, and that added on. And all of these experiences have become like what I do. I draw from all of these different spaces, countries, ideas, and my work is like a juxtaposition of all of this, like the science, the math, the culture. And the work is driven by curiosity. I'm a very curious person that you can see it moves from one medium to another, it moves from one idea to another. And I think so it's like curiosity, it is exploration, it's experimentation of ideas, all of which are based on scientific and philosophical inquiry and through the lens of geometric abstraction.
Thank you so much. And your lovely daughter has given us a Art Clinic online presentation. So I don't know if Ashwari is here today. Ashwari,
Yes, she is.
hi, welcome back. And it's really cool to see and hear more about the kind of ties between the two of you. But thank you for both for being here today. Our next our artist, Aziza Gibson-Hunter, who is a art clinic alum and massive contributor at this point. So we're so excited to have you back, Aziza. Can you talk a little bit about your work? And I will plug your own individual ACO from last year. So after this is over, people can go check that out because it was really quite exceptional.
Mhm. Well, it's a pleasure to be back, and I want to thank Art Clinic for having me, as well as Montgomery Art Association. Um, well, I did not start as a abstract artist. I was pretty much a printmaker, and I worked. Uh, um, became I kind of moved towards abstraction. I did portraiture. I did all of the more realistic work at first, and kind of moved towards abstraction over the years. And it's my I've combine acrylic painting now with paper making, print making. So I'm working across different, different processes, and the material is dictated pretty much by the concept. So if I have a concept that needs me, it needs me to move to film, then I'll go there. So that's pretty much how it's developed over the years. I've taught, of course, and I am now. I started Black Artists of DC. Oh my goodness, about 26 years ago, and to help Black artists to have a community where ideas can be shared, processes, just the thinking of their work and where they want to go with it, and to bring in different speakers and that type of thing. So we've been doing that for years, and that has been also a part. It's become a part of my practice, to tell you the truth. So it all kind of works together.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Aziza. It's great to have you back.
Nice to be
Our
here.
last but certainly not least, Anne Marchand, who was recommended by Eleni Campello, who was our host from last, well, I guess 2 weeks ago. But Anne, could you tell us a little bit about your work?
Well, first, let me say that I came here from New Orleans, Louisiana in the 80s and was looking for a way to get to the New York art scene, but ended up loving Washington, D.C. Decided that this was actually my home. So I've been involved in the community and in various ways, and with the art. I actually had a background of figure art when I came here. It was more expressionistic type of work, but it later developed into different themes of the landscape, depending on where I was traveling, because I've been all over the world, and I've been to New Mexico, particularly in the US, which I love. So that culture and many other cultures in the world are ingrained with archetypes and symbols that really made an impact, which I carry over now into some of the themes that I'm working with on a more universal way. But coming into Washington, D.C., involved in the community, working with women artists, particularly in spaces, nurturing that kind of a community, and then working with several of the galleries in town to exhibit my work, and also worked with the Washington Women's Arts Center way back when, promoting artists. So that was my first entree into marketing. So I've been involved in helping other artists as well as promoting my own work in the district. But I've moved through mural works, through landscape, and into abstraction as a intention of wanting to move into realm more of an unconscious, intuitive process. So it's taken me over 4 decades to get to the place where I am now. And I've had exhibitions that required me to have larger space, and space is one of the big concepts that has been overlying theme in my work, whether it's through Hubble images or interior space when I was working with the figure. So all of that concept of space has been a rich, fertile soil for my work in developing intuitive consciousness of interconnection with everything universal. So that's kind of just a broad concept of how I'm working.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. So I have questions for our 3 artists today, and then we'll kind of go from left to right in all of these for each slide. So our first artist will be Shanthi. But before we do that, how do you personally define abstraction within your own practice? Has that definition shifted over time? And I'll pass the torch to Shanthi to start us off with this question.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to Jordan and Mariana, and for doing this and inviting me, first of all. So the abstraction has been very, very important for me. Like I think when it came to art, it was abstraction that released my thoughts out. So it has been a way to explore my thoughts that run in my head like crazy. I used to call it mindscape and dreamscape, and I wanted to do, but I had no idea how to get that outlet. But it was also about playing with possibilities, that are not like things that we see around, but something that is in my mind struggling to get out. Um, it's also about seeking the unknown. I am always fascinated by the thresholds, like where two opposites meet and try to figure that out. And abstraction has been a way for me to to go ahead and express my thoughts and ideas, which I don't know myself completely, which I think is what fascinates me about this. And the definition has changed over the years because I thought abstract, I was very inspired by Kandinsky and Paul Klee and their abstraction and a number of Indian artists. But I didn't know where to start. But then when I moved into traditional art form like Kolam, it's drawn with dots and lines, a grid is made on the floor by women on a day-to-day basis in India. And it had so much of symbolism attached to it that I started going to traditional arts, especially I was nostalgic when I moved countries. And these drawings kept me going. But over the years, those grids and lines moved to what you see here, like this piece called Maya Cube, where I combine those traditional art form ideas with my thoughts on science and math to create artwork that I guess, became abstraction. It's about simple ideas, simple rules that I've set for myself, and then start from there and create something that I don't know. And I think and so it keeps changing it's free flow sometimes, it's very intentional sometimes. Yeah, so this is a drawing, this is a painting that sort of shows that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Anne, how's your definition shifted over time?
I think excuse me, abstraction isn't so much of a style as it's a way of paying attention. So earlier in my workings, I focused more on the gesture and materials, and over time, that attention has moved towards listening, so it becomes more of a dialogue. And originally, I was more the first. I can remember standing in my studio one time, looking at my work and saying, "I would really, really like to push this into pure abstraction without having any meaning or any forms that would be recognizable." So it was a transition from using the forms of nature, using the form of the figure, to actually consciously deciding that I wanted to go into the no form realm. And once I did that, then what you have as an artist left, you have emotion, you have gesture, you have intuition, you have feeling. I was trained as a figure artist to draw from the inside out. So I already had that experience of understanding the emotive qualities of work, but it was depicted through form at that early stage. And now with abstraction, you still have those energetic qualities, but they no longer have to have a form. They can have a gesture, they can have a movement, they can have a color, they can have a feeling and a vibration, kind of as Kandinsky talks about, color is a vibration, everything in the world has a vibration. So when you move from the form to those more ethereal elements, that's what shifted for me. And in this piece that's showing up here, you kind of see that shift because it's less about mark making and more about holding a field where perception slows down, and you're creating a space so that the meaning can arise when it's home. so that the viewer then becomes connected to the feeling that produces them.
Beautiful. Aziza, you're muted.
I arrived at this. I had to go back to the Black arts movement, because I had always enjoyed abstraction, just color, form, shape. I enjoyed that as a child. But the Black arts movement shifted my consciousness to the needs of my people, that I felt we needed these images of ourselves to uplift ourselves and to feel our full humanity in a situation, in a country that was always encroaching on that. And so I was vehemently against really abstraction, because I thought it was taking us away from something that that we really need, that the people needed. I looked at my folks and I said, my people need images, just positive, forceful, loving, caring, sharing images. And so I've gone full circle. So now I'm back, and I'm back to abstraction because it helped me to deal with ideas and spirit, and essence, and it opened up a whole world for me, because the Black body is so politicized that it just it became in a way almost like a prison. And so I said, I need to move beyond that. I need to move beyond that. And I needed to get to the essence. I'm very, very connected to my folks, and how we're depicted, and why we're depicted, and how we're depicted, and the just the complexity of this ancient people that we are, and the and our connection to the universe, all people's connection to the universe. And so abstraction opens up all of that. And I still will put pieces from more realistic things in there, but I'll distort them. And sometimes I will actually, like in this piece here, I wanted to show that I actually will put real items, objects in with the abstraction. So I do that also. So I'm very flexible in how I'm thinking about abstraction. So that's it.
Well, why abstraction over representational art? What role does process play in your work? Still with you, Aziza.
Okay, well, I gave you a little bit about why representational work became a limit and abstraction became boundless. And in this piece that you're looking at, this is from a series that I did, and I'm trying to remember, what was this series? Oh yeah, this piece is called Boukman's Ghost. And this is from a series, I had gone to Paris. And when I got there, I was just taken by the doors that were there, just incredible doors. And I looked at the material that they were made from, and many of them, the material that they made from would not be found in France. And then it took me right to colonialism, because that's where a lot of the materials for those doors were coming from. And so there is actually a door in this piece, but it's upside down. It's been painted into, drawn into. But this piece is called Boukman's Ghost. And it was the gesture, the white gesture strokes for me I used a material that is used in traditional African religious services. And it is made from like the eggshells. I mixed that into some of the paint. And the idea was to exercise, the taking and taking and taking that France had done to acquire its wealth and power. And and Boukman was a force during the Haitian Revolution. So you see, I go into ideas, but they are expressed in very, very abstract ways. And and the process play in my work, I guess the process will change with the needs of the idea. For me, the concept and the spirit of the idea leads everything.
Fabulous. Shanti?
Yeah, so I think I will like what Aziza just mentioned about boundless and the ideas defining the concepts, defining the direction. I think that's been my direction too. I do representational work sometimes, but given a choice, or not even a choice, I tend to go towards abstraction. I think it's given me the space to explore and experiment with ideas, and the ideas that I'm in. So to put it another way is like what I can't understand through words, I like to express through abstraction. And I think that has given me that space to play around with ideas like, black holes or, energy or time. And for me, that has been an important because I daydream a lot. And for a daydreamer, abstraction is like wonderful, where the whole process and process comes in as part of it. That the process of making an abstract piece of artwork is my daydreaming too. And, I daydream as if I'm a subatomic particle and what would the universe look like, or, a galaxy or a black hole on the other side. And scales are all mixed up there. I am not, so for me, that has been giving me this artistic liberty to play around with things that don't necessarily have to be facts, and I think that has been, as an artist, I have really embraced that in my work, and I think that is what has driven me, because I struggle with physics and the sciences, and some of them, because there were no images when I was growing up, and if there's this one drawing that would just take me a long way, and abstraction became a way for me to explore those ideas. And talking about process, as Aziza said, yeah, the concept and the materials drive the process. Like in this painting called Chakra Black Hole, which was like me closing my eyes and seeing dots go in a vortex and trying to capture that movement. I mean, how do you capture dots moving when I close my eyes? The light falls and the color changes. And then one day I realized, even when it's dark and I close my eyes, I still see a vortex, which was like a black hole. And I had this feeling that I am experiencing a black hole. And to capture that, this was a large painting, 60 inches by 40 8 inches. And I just started this piece with this idea of this huge, boundless, space to show a black hole. And I started with dripping. And that's one way the process is part of the artwork. I know I want to do a spiral, but I'm going to start with drips. And I wait for the drips to mingle when they dry and wait for them patiently. And then I keep adding, and then I feel like I'm finally ready to start the spiral, because the spiral is a very meditative process for me. And I start with a thin brush and paint, acrylic paint, and just find the central point of the canvas and start freehand. And I will have to take into account the spacing, the drying time, everything, and my hand has to be steady to be able to do that. Uh, and what happens with this piece is that it's a lot irregular. A lot of people say it looks perfect, but it's not. But as it goes, but the process is such a huge part of it, because I'm doing freehand. And this was a very tough painting because I completely forgot in that mood to paint that I can't move my arm to make a spiral. If it is, I've done it like larger pieces on unstretched canvas, and which is easy to place on the table or get on it. But with a stretched canvas, sometimes you get into these things where it does not, and process is a huge part that you learn on the job, kind of like. So I had to figure out ways to do it, but it did come out the way I think I would have. It changed directions a little bit, but that kind of physical process and the process of the paint mingling with each other kind of in spaces, all of that is very important. And I think, for me, I think it's the process that I'm very excited about. The end product comes out of that process. A lot of back pain also, you know. So that's, abstraction for me.
I get the back pain. I work flat too, so I hear you on that. And do you have anything to add to this? Like, why not representational painting, right?
Um, for me, the abstraction allows for experience over interpretation. So space has been an ongoing expansion for me from times when I was on the Gulf Coast looking out at the sky, and then in the New Mexico desert looking out at the landscape, and then through the Hubble telescope looking out at the universe. So abstraction has allowed me to move into that space and broaden the space. I have a story that an astronaut named Ron Garan talks about. He wrote a book called Floating in Darkness, and he talks about his experiences on the space station, about how when we look at life and you look at Earth and you see the beautiful globe just floating in this dark space, he says everything is interconnected. The way that he tries to put that together is like a dolly zoom in film. He says there's this zoom that you do when you're taking a picture, you're looking at the immediate action of what's happening, and then you roll back, and within that you also see the entire landscape that it's happening in. And so for me, that has been the expansion. That's a good metaphor for the expansion that happens in abstraction. You're dealing with all the emotive qualities within the figure, but yet it's expanding out into space, into the universal, into how everything is connected. And so for me, abstraction, I can do that with the flow of the medium, the just listening, the collaboration of how the paint is moving along in the canvas and paying attention to that, looking, constraining, restraining, and going forward. So it's like a gestural dance in a way with the paint, and then the meaning comes out of that. But all of the information that you have within your own body is also embedded in everything that's happening on that surface. So to me, the experience of that comes the experience of unconsciousness, of knowing in an intuitive way something that you may not have known in your life previously, and then pausing and taking the time and letting that settle within your own self. Then you can move forward and do the process again. And so for me, abstraction allows that kind of experimentation.
Thank you. Cool. Oh, and we'll continue with you. How do materials influence your decision making? Are there certain media or tools that push you towards abstraction more naturally?
I started with brushes, and I love the brush, but the brush wants to represent things, mostly drag brushes. But over time, I found other materials. Materials have their own intelligence, and the piece that we're looking at, mirabilia, was created through materials that I found along the way, like silk in India and the spray paint, glass beads, all of these materials that have come to me in some way are related to either the earth element or some beautiful quality of light. Let's just say silk has within it its own quality of beauty. And so whenever I look for materials, I look for the quality that's inherent in those materials. And if it's trying to say what I want to express, then it's automatically something that I would be drawn to because I want to put that in the work. So in mirabilia, in this piece, I selected the silk fabrics. I selected the glass beads, and there's some sand, which has references to my early days, in beach properties where you just walk and feel the earth between your toes, which is a wonderful experience. So all of those experiences, they become subconscious, but they become tools that allow for the artist to select qualities of material that relate not only to their own personal narrative, but to qualities that are universal and that other people would experience. So also the other thing that's interesting is my father was in the contracting supply business. So I grew up around a lot of tools. And one of the tools that always fascinated me was trowels and scraping. People scraping concrete and moving it into broad areas. And it was also fascinating too. So that tool, I started using tools like that in my own work when working flat, and you can let more opaque paint flow into more fluid paint, but it needs a tool in which to move the paint around. So those tools then became things that I was drawn to for working and experimenting. And so I try to look for tools that are in other professions that might have some application that would be totally surprising and unexpected in the fine arts world. And whenever I find those tools, it's always wonderful because you get things that aren't necessarily programmed mark making by the artist. They become something that is like an information that wants to come to you as a surprise, and it's a beautiful surprise. So you leave it, and it's kind of magical in a way to use spatulas and trowels, other things to drag the paint around. So I still use the brush. I still put sand, and I use beads and that type of thing in work, but all of it has some quality that reflects what I'm trying to let's, for example, in Renaissance painting, dark and light chiaroscuro, you would mix beads and you would create veil, and you would create shadows and lightness and darkness. But that wasn't because of the inherent materials having that quality. It was the artist putting that quality in through the materials. But in my case, I try to select materials that already have frequency and a quality within them. That makes sense.
Sure. Thank you so much. Aziza? You're still muted.
I'll do that. There we go.
There you go.
I love paper. It's alive, it breathes. It comes from trees who are creatures that I adore. And I love it. But still, if the concept, if the idea, if the spirit of the idea demands iron, then I have to go there. This particular piece is all paper, and I rarely work inside of a rectangle because I am trying to push for this idea of boundlessness. I think that the human being, the human spirit, has been defined in a way that has weighed it down, and that we're so much more than what we have been told we are. And I always try to, in most of my work, I try to push out beyond the square or the rectangle to capture that, to keep telling myself, I know we are so much more. This piece is paper. It's been printed on, and then collaged. Different mediums have been added to the paint in order to get the different textures. And what is interesting about this particular series is that these are talisman. And in the back of this piece are materials like rose quartz and sage, and I'm trying to think of some of the other materials that are in there. Lavender are sealed in the back of it to act as a to protect. I did these during COVID, and to protect the people that own them, and to protect the space that they are in. So the idea, of feeling so helpless in a time when so many people were dying and wanting to provide something. And so these were talisman that were created to protect and to inspire, because I thought people needed inspiration during that time, and I had another thing. It was inspiration, it was protection. I can't think of it now because I'm too nervous. But yeah, that's my story on that one.
Thank you so much, Shanthi.
Yeah, so the way for me, most of my work is concept driven. And then I think of what materials would best describe what I have in my mind that I start with. But then there's the other side also where while I'm talking or in meetings, I have my hand playing with materials, whether it's paper, wire, whatever that is around me. And a lot of times I find something emerge out of that. That will just take me to places like Anne had mentioned, I love the hardware stores. I just go in there, and like even Aziza talked about iron, I am like, oh, why do I have to only go to art supply stores when all of these materials are there? And that's the part of hardware stores that I like. And I do include whether it's twine, cotton twine, or dowel. I don't know if I'm saying it right, dowel sticks, the wooden sticks. And I just love taking wire, just take a wire and loop it and, do. But then there are times when the materials will major way change my direction. Like in this particular painting, which was done like many years ago, where I had this idea. I was reading this parable about the concept of time, the Indian concept of time, and about the scales of time that we experience versus, the universe that's happening in the universe. And I had this idea and I needed a canvas that was like a certain proportion. I couldn't find one handy. So I just pulled out one unstretched canvas and I started drawing this window, which I think, the rectangle sometimes keeps me staying within that space to put my ideas, but then I can go out, like as Aziza was saying, like expand out of that rectangular area. So for me, what I did was in this case, I needed that rectangle with the geometric abstraction. And it was about like the story was about a raven flying over the tallest peak on Earth once every 1,000 years and dusting off that peak. The time it takes for the mountain peak to become flat is equivalent to it's almost like the moment in the cosmos. And so as I was planning this, and the process also was part of it, measurements and everything, and I realized that I loved what was happening, and it sort of connected me to physics more about the frame of reference within which, like the window in which to measure things. And so I started doing this. I had no idea what was going to happen to the border, the size space around it. But I said, I sort of sometimes have faith in the artwork taking me somewhere. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to think about that. But that material restriction, or I don't know, is that the right word? But not having what I wanted, and going with the materials that I had influenced this. And I ended up using lines as my symbol for time. And so what I did was the background of that rectangle is all lines, like painted with brush. And those represent the cosmic time, which is boundless. We don't know if it's infinite or not, but it is beyond our perception. And what we can see, even the 1,000-year line mark, is something that's hard for us to imagine. And I sort of used a way to do abstract. I think for me, abstraction helps me think of those things. And like I said, I play with materials. I sometimes will be working with hole punched paper, sometimes with wire, sometimes with thread, sometimes with pen and ink, which has been one of my early pieces. Since growing up, ink was like the fountain ink that we used. So I come from the age of fountain ink pens. And we always had blots and blobs and all kinds of things. I think I still relate to that. And so I play with that. I think I like its paper and pen and ink for its immediacy, spontaneity, that I don't know where it is going. I'm always aware that I'm not going to get a perfect piece. And I think that gives me hope about the way I work. Yep. Thank you.
We'll stick with you. How do you think about composition when the subject is non-representational? What signals you to tell you the piece is going well or working?
Yeah, so I usually start with a very simple idea. Uh, it just could be like, I want to make circles. This particular piece was also like, for my way of dealing with the pandemic. And I had this canvas out there and I just needed to do something. And all I knew was I wanted to make circles. I love circles. I go towards circles and lines when I don't know what to do. So I just like started picking up whatever colors that came. And I like randomness, so I don't usually even think about what color I'm picking. I just pick something. And then I will just make these circles. And I kept working on this. And during the pandemic, I just was very anxious, frustrated, and it's like just very emotionally, I didn't know what I needed an outlet, a very physical outlet. And so when I do that, I tend to take paint with the tube and not the brush. I bypass the brush completely. And it's a very physical act of making. And I love the number 3. So I don't know if that helps with the composition in any way, but I just love the number 3. And I make like 3 lines, three waves, or something that just keeps me going. And so here for me in this piece, as I'm working, I'm looking for some kind of a balance where I don't want one color standing up, front more than, or like visually standing out more than the others. So I'm like, oh, this is too bright here. And then I would go with the other color wave that crosses it. And it was more of sort of trying to make everything a little more even. And that's my composition that happens as I am working, and it is the process that defines it. But it took me a few weeks and months to calm down. And then I started my little painting pen where I just have a few drops of acrylic ink. And then you can't see it very well in this, but the lace-like thing that you see, they're all made of dots. And so instead of the physical act of drawing with the tube, I decided to go with the dots, and that covered so that it has the two sides. And I think, it's a very personal way of saying, like, that the piece is working is, I think it's just my mental state at that time. And, depends on where it wants to go. And if it's able to take it that way, then I feel like, yes, for me, it is working.
And how do you know when a painting is working or not?
Do I know when a painting is working or not? Well, most of the time when I'm working, the paint is in the process of becoming something. So I usually have to wait some time before I actually can see the results of my gestural motions and the composition, because it's a very fluid medium. And then once that settles and I look at that, I check the painting and to see what it needs next. There was a particular piece that I just completed that the fluidity of the piece worked really well. There was something lacking, and so it was forms that needed to be put in a broader atmospheric kind of perspective of space. That was the fluidity, and it needed to be something more concrete that needed to tie the composition to the edges of the painting and overall flow. So once that kind of thinking is settled in my mind and I can just look at the piece, it just tells me that it's complete. There's an intuitive knowing, everything feels correct for me. It's a sensing. There's no more need to correct me.
I get that for sure. Aziza, what do you think? How do you know a painting is going well or not?
Well, I work on the work, and when I feel like I'm close to the end of it, I put it away. I cover it, or I put it in a closet sometimes. And when I bring it out, everything that is not functioning well will just make itself, it stands out. It just stands out. And at that point, I would put tape on each little thing and then go back piece by piece and make those corrections or adjustments. And then at that point, like Anne says, it's a very you feel I can feel when it's done. I just say it's done. Now, I have had times when I've worked on a piece for a long time, and I had to understand that the next piece that I work on will be the resolve of the first piece. And I call those bridge pieces. I have quite a bit, well, when I'm moving from one concept and it's developing, it's like evolving into another concept. There'll be these pieces that they're not quite, they don't have that sense of peace about them, because they're in flux, because they're moving me from one concept, or not from one concept to another, but the evolution of the idea. And so the second piece, the piece that comes afterwards, is when it's more resolved. And from there on, I can resolve the pieces. There's that sense of resolve. But that does happen sometimes when I realize that it's not going to happen because the piece, there's been a shift in between in the concept.
Excellent, excellent. Is there a balance you seek between control and chance? How do you know when to intervene or when to step back, Claudia? Or Aziza, sorry.
Um, I find that it's really not about my control. It's not about trying to maintain control. It's for me, each piece is about, I'm thinking, when I'm painting, I realize I'm making these decisions. They're lightning flash decisions that you're making with each stroke of a brush, each time you take out the scissors and you cut or you tear or you splash. All of these they're split-second decisions that are going on, and they are affected by what happened before them. So and there are times when you just have to let it be and move on. And this piece, this is called We Bend's Time. And Shanthi, I love physics. I love the ideas in physics. They just are so mind bending and stretching. And I saw your piece with the circles and I was like, oh my gosh, because I have been into these circles for the past 5 years. This is one. It's these donut type circles, which I'm learning now of the torus. So that you may know what I'm talking about. So I find that physics offers me that boundlessness that I think all human beings have, but we have been taught by society to push it down because we're controlled so much better if we do so. So the chance things that happen, I welcome, and I will just allow them to be, and sometimes I will adjust them to bring them more into compliance with the piece. I don't like that word compliance because it's messing with my freedom idea, but yes, that's my answer.
Cool, cool. Shanti?
Oh, yeah. So, Aziza, you can see the circles disappearing in my work here. Uh, so this was a piece that I could not stop myself from working after a visit to CERN in Geneva in 2024, I think. And I wanted to do all kinds of things, but the control part of it lost. Like me wanting to work on neuroscience or something else, and it just went into this play with ink, wet on wet, where you need a sense of control to know where you want to have the circles. And then you have to also take that entire chance of not knowing what's going to come out when the colors mix. So it's wet on wet, 2 colors, 3 colors, 4 colors, whatever, and they all mix up and still to build on it. And I wanted a white background for this. So this is my control part where I wanted a white background and the mixed up soup in the center. And I did not realize that some blue ink, this is a very large drawing. It's 72 inches by 45 inches. And I had to spread it across on my 2 tables and work. And in order to maintain the white, sometimes I have paper towel spread out so that the ink does not there, but it can go through also. But I'm usually, so there is the control of not having the color come on the white border. And then there's the chance that you want to happen in the center, which sometimes is almost impossible for me to, because I do mess up a lot and I forget about that. Uh, so in this case, I did not realize that sometimes certain blue ink, certain colors of the ink, blue, don't dry even after 2 days, which was sort of, for me, it was like unexpected because I love ink because it dries very fast. And it made some smudges on the white without me being aware. And in order to get over that, it was a chance, a mistake that happened without me being aware. And then the control part takes over and says, I can't let that be there. So what you see, the blue is like thousands and thousands and layers of blue dots till I covered the entire, and I was like, so talk about time. It was like I had planned for like a month of this. I ended up using the whole year to make those dots. And the stepping back was the time that I was like, I have these smudges. Should I or not? And so I had to put it away for some time, process the whole thing. And then I just told myself, at CERN, we don't know what kind of particles escape the colliders where they have what happens at the high-speed collision of particles. So I decided I'd actually add the smudge that happened was actually a good thing because it actually added to the whole concept. So to say, how it works is control and chance coexist in my work. I like both, and I can't work without either. And so this is my piece here. That.
I love it when mistakes become kind of the highlight of the piece in a lot of ways. And you just have to find the incorporation. It's beautiful. And I know you have a lot of chance in your work. And how do you know when to intervene and step back when you work?
Well, in this particular series that we're showing here, it's what I call the flow series. So it's been more chance than control in a lot of ways, but it's not the only kind of work that I've done throughout all my painting days. But this particular piece was an interesting piece because it was a combination of control, witnessing, listening, and constraint because it was being filmed while I was making it. And the person who was doing the filming was an artist as well. And it was my role to talk about the process. So this piece became an example of all of the things that we're talking about in terms of control and restraint. And it was in the immediate moment where I had to pull my voice, my gesture, my listening, my watching, everything that was required in a painting into a strict focus that I've really never had to experience before. So it's a unique experience. And one of the things that I wanted to do at that particular time was to have white shapes very prevalent as negative space shapes. So having this liquid moving paint on surface that I was physically moving and changing and moving with and controlling and letting it be was all something that I've had to do at different points in all of the painting, but not specifically like this particular piece, which was really interesting. And I loved it because it all worked out. It just
Sorry. Cool. I didn't mean to hit the button. I'm sorry. I was just trying to make sure that I could have control over the slides. Cool. Or how does your abstract work reference personal narrative, cultural history, spirituality, or place, even if indirectly? I won't interrupt you this time with the slides, Anne. Sorry.
It's the invisible. It holds a lot of memories for me. It's not declarative. It just resonates with a kind of a remembrance of sacred things, temples and places. You don't really know what you're looking at, but like the arches that you see in the painting could represent any place that someone has visited as an entryway. It could be a home, it could be something like a temple, like I mentioned, but it's also painting as a container, the sense of space, containing sacred space. And traveling has given me that awareness. You know, I've been to India, I've been to many places in Europe and Asia, and in southern US and the desert, as I mentioned before, which all have their own symbols of sacred and spiritual belief systems. So this piece, even though it doesn't directly reference my personal narrative, it still gives me the feeling of those spaces that hold that kind of vibration. And
Was this piece earlier or later for you? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Earlier, the earlier piece than the one that we just saw.
Oh, in your timeline of history, sorry.
This is 2017, something like that. And so these pieces, something that I hadn't said earlier is one of the things that I had done here in Washington, D.C. is I did a mural, the cityscapes, and the D.C. Commission has an art bank that has a lot of those cityscapes of mine on view. And so architecture has been a really big influence in the way space is structured as a container for dwelling of spirit or human or whatever, intuitively how you want to view that, but it has the idea of space. And so that architecture has sort of made its way into a painting like this because it's just like an echo of something that I referenced earlier in my work. And it shows up in this particular piece. And even though it's not narrative, to me, it's a thread line through the idea of that space from personal to universal to cosmic space, but all as a vibration and energy.
Fabulous. Aziza, I know you've already talked a little bit about cultural history and things like that, but can you expand upon that?
Yes. Well, I'll talk about this particular piece. I was thinking in terms of, I did a series called Potentia. And when I was a little girl in my neighborhood, the elderly ladies would sit out on the porch and they'd be speaking with each other. And the children, we'd be out there playing. And sometimes they would look at a kid, one of the kids, and they would say, that boy got potential. And it was it was felt in the community that this child had capacity, that he was smart, that he had had a sense of morals, a sense of respect, a sense of himself, that he had a space in the universe. And I often think about how many people's potential has been put in a little box, has been reduced, has been diminished, has been erased. And I wanted to try to see what, I wanted to just imagine, what does that potential look like? That potential. I mean, I love the way that they would say it. I love the spirit in which they said it, the love and the sense of tomorrow, of the boundlessness again of it. And so I did these pieces related to that. So it's like, I really like the energy of being, of life. I love the energies that are out there. There's all these different energies, and trying to fix the look of that energy. What would it look like? And so for me, I do that I've done that with several series, and so there I'm referencing something personal and narrative, and I even think in terms of my abstraction as being narrative. So I'm fixing to the energy of it. I live in a world that is in constant movement, and this energy is everywhere. The object is not as important to me as the energy of the object. So so that's it.
Shanthi, can you add to your story?
Yeah, sure. So I think the space titled Memory Lane fits into all the different, thoughts that you had asked, like to talk about, like the personal narrative and cultural. So I grew up learning kolam, which is an art form, like I told you, on the floor with powder and dozen lines from my mother and grandmother. And this started like when you grow up with them, you watch women do this every day. And I also grew up watching my retired civil engineer father work on his large floor plans. So the blue, indigo blue kind of plants in those days. And I I used all of that to understand, and this particular piece called Memory Lane is like floor plans, my memory of the floor plans of all the houses that are places I've lived in. So that's all of the ones in the background is all the floor plans. And the columns that I have learned from my mother and grandmother are like on the streets. They're done on the street. So these are the street in between, and all of it. And this, in another way, is a very, for me, it is a question when people ask me, where are you from? And I have no idea how I should answer because I'm like, okay, I am from Maryland. And they're like, no, not here, before this. And then, I think that question is just sometimes not sufficient to give the answer that is expected. And so I sometimes I'll just go off on this thing about, like Anne had mentioned, about where in the universe. And so this is about all the floor plans and the memory lane of all the things that I learned as a child, and where does it all fit into the cosmos? And and it keeps me going.
Thank you so much. I know we have some time constraints, and I was, of course, wanting to hear so much more from all you in terms of questions. So maybe we can kind of, I don't know, I don't want to speed run the questions, but I want to make sure we get to the people who are here today because they also in the chat have had some great questions to follow up with you guys. So I don't know how to do this, but maybe we'll just kind of like do half quick questions. And I know a lot of it's we've kind of talked about anyway. So I hope that makes sense. Maybe we can kind of, I don't know, go quicker because we've gone over our time because this conversation has been absolutely fantastic. But we'll move on to the next couple questions and we'll hopefully do them really rapidly. How do you approach color in abstraction as emotion, structure, symbolism, or something else entirely? Shanti,
Um,
quick answer.
yeah, quick answer. I just love deep blues. My artwork tends to get deeper and saturated. A lot of times, the white lines are reminiscent in this particular drawing of columns, and the space and column. And I have I assign colors to different things in my mind as I'm working, and that becomes like a language, and you know, and that it carries over to other pieces too.
Thank you so much for your rapid answer. I feel so guilty asking you to shorten your answers because you guys are so well spoken and I learned so much from you guys. But all right, so Anne, quick answer.
I use my color both emotionally and structurally as vibration and as spatial interaction between, what colors advance and what colors receive. Colors have that property in space. And so since space is one of my biggest interests, I love to see how you can do that push and pull between bright colors and dark colors. So I use that to pick space And I also use it as an emotive property because each color is either active or it has a stillness within it. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that was good. I think that works really quite well. I feel the same way about color too. Aziza?
Color for me is emotive, but I'm very interested in the relationship between them. So I do a lot of work with the relationship between the colors.
It's like no color is an island, right? How do you feel you connect with the viewer, Aziza?
Oh, I
This might be a harder question to answer
yeah,
quickly.
this one's kind of hard, but I make these pieces not only for people that are in this time, but for people that will be. And I have no, I don't have any kind of explanation for that, but that is what has come to me. And so I have to leave it at that because it gets complicated.
Get it. I get it. Shanti?
Yeah, so I think the beauty of abstract art is that as an artist, you put what you think or whatever you feel out there, and it gives the space for the viewer to bring in their experiences and to look at a piece and form their own thoughts. So I find that very interesting about artwork. And in this particular piece, it's a hole punched piece. It's a 6 feet by 6 feet by 8 or 9 feet high installation just made with paper. And when you walk around it, it moves gently. And I think uh, for me, I think it would be what I feel is like it is science and math and all kinds of previous experiences that get into my artwork. And when someone sees it, I would love for them to have questions and thought-provoking ideas or, something that would come, or maybe it's their experiences of just like the wind or, that they feel at that time. And so my part is done in terms of like when I put it out there, and I think I would like the viewer to take it further.
Anne?
Well, I reach the viewer through color, through the emotive properties of color, but also through scale. I like to work really large so that the viewer becomes encompassed in the work so that they experience it on a different level than just through the eyes. They actually experience something through the body, they resonate with that. And also the shape of the pieces. Like I like to work on a square or a circle. So those symbolic forms themselves carry a lot of meaning and representation. So I think all of these kind of subtle clues are like an invitation to the person looking at it to enter the work in whatever capacity they see or they are drawn to, and then just start exploring all these different elements that are presented.
Fantastic. Oh, Anne, you and I share a common love of this artist. Can you point to a pivotal work, artist, or movement that shifted how you think about abstraction?
Yes, I saw this work in the San Francisco Museum of Art, Julie Moretto, and it's really large scale, and it's one of several pieces that I've seen of hers that are this large scale. But the thing that really drew me in was the use of her line work, architectural, because I'm so used to using fields of color and broader strokes that these structural lines that she uses to create space was such a revelation that this one element of the drawing process could create so much structure. And it made me realize that the structure that I use in my own work should be more visible.
Aziza?
This is Sam Gilliam's Seahorses. I was a teenager. I went to the Museum of Art in Philadelphia to see this, and I thought he was just so audacious to put this piece on the side of the museum. And I was just, so what is so interesting about it, now try to make this fast, is that he actually became a mentor of mine in 2008. And so it just came full circle.
So cool. So cool. Shanti?
Yes, for me, I didn't grow, I mean, I grew up with traditional art, and that is where my starting point is. And this is a drawing by my mother, who also does embroidery of the columns, and like my daughter Aishwarya does the drawings of columns. So we all like have these traditional art form that has just inspired us to come up with our own interpretations. And it was these that I think have taken me to the kind of geometric abstraction that I've done. And then there's been Paul Klee and Kandinsky and Sam Gilliam and Julie Mehretu, and the list goes on.
It's a community of artists that bring us to who we are. This is
Mhm.
our last question. I'm pretty sure, so we can get into our more forum-based community questions. But how do you decide when abstract painting is completed? I always actually say painting's never complete, it's only abandoned. But what do you think, Shanti?
Uh, so I have to tell you about this piece was a part of the Arts and Humanities Council of Montgomery County's grant period 1 year work. And this was the last piece that I was working on. Usually the last piece, I just throw paint. And so in this case, it was about just going on with all kinds of things that I see in my head and everything. And I think I had the deadline of the last day telling me that I have to complete it because I could have gone on with the space for a lot longer. So the deadline helped me. But sometimes it's usually that the next brushstroke will just take away from it rather than add to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know painting is finished when continuing on it would be more about my uncertainty than the painting's needs. And in this particular case, Vincenzo Vitae, I had talked about it earlier, is that there was I felt the stillness and I wanted the painting to arrive, but it didn't have 3 elements in it that had to be put back in. So I put those in, and then when the work no longer pulled at me, then I can step back and it evokes the intended emotion. It maintains its structural balance, and it no longer needs to be improved in any way. So I just have a strong gut feeling that the work is complete, and it settles, and then I just put it away. And sometimes I'll turn things around and not look at them for a while, and then look at them again, and it affirms that it's indeed complete.
I think sometimes the more you paint, the more your gut actually tells you when to stop. Aziza, what do you think?
I think you're perfectly right because I worked on this piece for over a year, and it's like 9 feet by something like 14 feet or something like that. And it just, it just said done. And I was glad to be done because it was a long project.
Well, thank you so much. From me and Mariana, I'm sure she can pipe in, of course, in Montgomery County, sorry, the MAA, Montgomery Art Association. Oh, I didn't capitalize art. This has just been so great, and I apologize for like the speed questions at the end. I had so much that I wanted to ask you guys that I just maybe didn't think about my timing on that one, but. You guys were absolutely phenomenal. And then I think, Mariana, you were doing some
Yes,
collective of some
yes.
questions that we can ask them. Maybe you can help me out on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. This has been amazing. And the comments are there. Maybe I'll send you all the comments which I copied, even though we saved the art chat also. But I wanted to ask you a couple of salient comments in addition to the very positive ones. Can you elaborate a little bit on the symbolism and concepts from other cultures that may have I think you partly answered this in your presentations, but which are overriding symbolism from your cultures that influence your art? If there is an answer to that.
Well, in the 80s, I did a whole series of paintings based on the crucifix form,
Wow.
Christology, and I called it Stations of the Cross. So it had a very Catholic
Great.
reference, and I have a show here in Washington, D.C. on that particular piece.
Great.
Series.
Thank you. And Shanti?
Yeah, I think Indian art is mostly symbolism.
Uh-huh.
Like every part of like the sculptures or the art forms, there is an inherent philosophy attached to it. Like there are significant aspects of daily living and also our place in the universe. And I think for me, that's why I think abstract art
Uh-huh.
came like, oh, I could relate to it so much more easily than representational art. For me personally, it was that beginning of saying that, this the star here or the moon in this picture, represents this, like the Orion is like, or the stars. There's a narrative that's happening, and we have festivals and celebrations based on like praying to the sun and the cattle and the farmers. It's
Right.
all about symbolism, and I think that plays a huge part in my artwork.
Yes, great. And Aziza?
And also with mine, definitely Adinkra symbols are very, very prominent in my work. And the cosmograms from the Congo, I use those also.
Are Adinkra mostly Ghanaian or
Yes, they are.
Nigerian?
And yes, they're usually on textiles. Mm.
Right. I love those too. Yeah, go ahead, Anne.
The mythology that I was using at the time was Christian mythology, but it was also it was Catholic. It was also Native American mythology, and it was a combination of the theme of sacrifice and how that was represented in each of those cultures.
I'd like to echo the comment. Thank you. The comment that you all are so different as artists, and yet your processes and your inspirations go so well together. I think Mel said that. And Lily was the one interested in the symbolism. I'm sorry, I didn't quote. Other people have said it's wonderful to hear your explanations about where your art is coming from. And yet the viewer's experience is like purely aesthetic if they don't have the luxury of hearing you. And that's just how I guess it is. We already asked you how the viewer's experience has influenced you, if at all. In addition to commenting, Mimi says, how do you balance the invention of the abstract art with the order and structure inherent in most works of art? I think you mostly answered that, but if you have any comments about that, please jump in.
Talking about composition.
I think that is what the person means, like the so-called rules of art, which, we all know how it's good to break them too.
Okay, well, I can address that because my training was through Lamar Dodd at the University of Georgia, and he was a very grid-oriented person, and he taught compositional structure, and that was one of the rules-based training that I had. And so how it develops now with my work is sometimes when I'll be working, I will actually use those points of reference on the edges of canvases to mark as delineations of a grid. And then that will be the first pass at ordering the canvas. But then once I start working, those points aren't so important. I mean, I know they're there because they have been marked, but they become intuitive and they just sort of blend into what's happening on the surface with an unconscious realization that they're still there.
Yeah, that is amazing. Thank you. And Shanti talked about starting from the middle and sort of going around, right?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, like Anne said, I start with a grid. I think the column dots, freehand dots, and the grid is where, how well is your grid? So your patterns depend on that.
Uh,
So I start with the grid. I start with symmetry, and then I just break that symmetry eventually as I keep going. There's some little trigger, some mark, something will just change that symmetry, and it will move away from that. And so I have like very simple rules, like draw the lines this way. So I
ah,
start with that kind of a very orderly way, but I also know there's only so much time that I can stick to order. And then chaos takes over, random shapes come in, and then suddenly I'm like, oh, I need my order back. And then I start reinforcing the grid or other new shapes. And it is this play of both simplicity and then it leads to this complexity and something new emerges out of it. And I think that's what makes abstract art exciting for me.
I will
wonderful.
add
Thank you.
for Shanti's that the explanation of Kolam, like you can definitely find both Shanti and her daughter talking about this in Aishwarya's.
Ishwarya.
Am I saying her name right?
Aishwarya.
Oh, gosh, I'm so terrible. I'm so sorry. But her explanation, the two of you talking about it in that Art Clinic Online recording is a great conversation that the two of you have together. So I encourage our viewers here today to go check that out. Little side
Fantastic.
plug, you know.
Yes. And Aziza, do you have sort of an order that you then start with and then break and come back to it or not?
I'm trying to explore what happens when rules are broken.
Ah,
How do we discover? Because
fascinating.
I'm always trying to discover the more of us. Yeah.
Yes. Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing to me how orderly you all are. In another way in which you fit together is that we see these patterns, and sometimes they feel to the viewer either chaotic or sort of overwhelming sometimes. And then we know that you have this structure in your brain, which is unbelievable how well you deal with it and how well you break it when you need to. That's fantastic. Mel says he's definitely joining the MAA. And I hope some other of our viewers will consider doing the same if they're not already. And fascinating insights from everyone, and very compelling works. And would you call yourselves, all three of you, conceptual abstract artists? I'm not sure even what that means exactly, but one question from Felisa came up.
Well, I think that probably from just listening to all of us, that I can myself, but yes, there are concepts from other cultures, from religions, from philosophical realms that I read and hear and listen to and try to absorb some of those ideas. So whether or not I take those concepts as a reality or not, I try to find the common thread that runs through everything and then present in my own self a universal thread that connects everything. So that, the whole idea of the circle as the symbol is unity, that there's unity in everything, that we're all one, basically. So that's a concept. So in that sense, I suppose you could say that we're conceptual artists, but I wouldn't call myself a conceptual artist.
Per se.
It
Right.
moves to something.
Would you, Shanti or Aziza, call yourself conceptual?
I think when I have to spell it out, I would. If I don't have to, I'm just
And
making
you
it
don't.
Yeah.
Great. And
Shanti,
Aziza,
Shanti said, she said
yeah,
what I think I would.
right. That's wonderful. I don't know if you guys saw the opening ceremonies of the Olympics. I saw only a little tidbit, but they made a big point of the circles interacting with each other. You know, the 6 circles, is it, or 5 of the Olympic logo. And it was interesting how kind of that unites us all. They talked about unity and harmony in the narration of what was being presented.
Are
Which,
there any questions from our viewers? You can raise your hand really quickly, and I'm sorry we kind of didn't jump into this right away, but is there anyone here that has a question? They can raise your hand. I thought I saw Schroeder earlier with his hand raised, and I sorry I
oh,
couldn't
great.
get to you. Schroeder, are you still here? Can unmute yourself. Otherwise, you can raise your hand and we can answer your questions, hopefully. Last call. Well, while we're waiting for any final questions, I do want to say that in 2 weeks we have Jun Lee, who is a Washington, D.C. printmaker, also activist. Her printmaking uses animals as metaphors for human competition. Absolutely stunning work, and I love seeing her out there as an activist protesting, using her artwork to do so. So come back in 2 weeks on February 21st for that from 10:30 to 11:30. We'll try and keep it in an hour time frame, but it's okay. And she is hosted by Tim Tate, who is one of the incredible artists at the Washington Glass School, and he always brings incredible people to talk at the Art Clinic online. But without further ado, I must say thank you all for being here today and talking about your work. I really could not have asked for a better panel to talk about abstract art, your different perspectives, and have just been really beautiful meld and a beautiful story. So thank you everyone for being here. And thank you, Montgomery Art Association, for sponsoring our event today. It is always wonderful working with you. Mariana, do you have anything
And
else to
I
add?
want to say thank you also to Jordan and MAA, who I'm sure worked hard on putting together the actual questions to ask the artists so they would regale us with their answers. And thank you so much. I'm so impressed. I have bookmarked all of your websites or your in my personal materials so that I can keep following you.
I want to thank John for doing all the recording for all these presentations. Because of him, we have a backlog and a library of incredible artists in the DMV area, and you guys can watch those recordings from my webpage for now. But we are building our own Art Clinic online webpage, hopefully this year. So John's incredible work will just be kind of its own thing on the own webpage, and you'll just see all these incredible, beautiful faces, different perspectives, all coming from our incredible region. So thank you guys.
Thank you all. Thank yous everywhere. An amazing forum.